Trump proposes a twin-engine F-35. Meet the F-55. You have to give Trump credit. He really knows how to make headlines. During a press conference in Doha, Qatar, the president dropped a major surprise. He announced plans for a new twin-engine, upgraded version of the F-35, which he called the F-55. On top of that, he said there would be a modernized version of the F-22, nicknamed the F-22 Super. Now, the idea of a twin-engine stealth jet is something the U.S. Navy has dreamed about for years. But can you really just slap a second engine onto the F-35 and call it a day? Not quite. So, can the U.S. military actually develop the F-55? And what's the point of doing it? Let's rewind a bit. In mid-May, U.S. military aviation was already in the spotlight. There were reports that the Pentagon is considering using space-based early warning radars instead of the E-7A aircraft. The Air Force also released some specs for its upcoming F-47, a top speed of Mach 2 and a combat radius of 1,850 kilometers. And then came Trump's bombshell, the F-55. On May 15, 2025, speaking in Doha, Trump said the U.S. is working on a major upgrade to the F-35, one that would include two engines. He explained his reasoning simply. He doesn't trust single-engine jets. Even if General Electric builds the best engines in the world, Trump says he prefers 2, 3, or even 4 engines. One engine, in his view, is too risky. This isn't the first time Trump has questioned the F-35's single-engine design. Back in September 2023, a Marine Corps F-35B mysteriously disappeared during a flight in South Carolina. Trump immediately saying he had warned Lockheed Martin long ago. What happens if that one engine fails? At the time, Trump had no official power, so Lockheed brushed it off, simply replying that a single engine was sufficient. But now that he's back in the spotlight and back in office, the twin-engine F-35 is getting attention again. Of course, Trump's Doha announcement may have been a fief cuff, but considering the recent F-35 developments, many believe there's already a formal proposal for an F-55 sitting on his desk. That might explain why he mentioned it so confidently. And U.S. media think the same. After his speech, reporters started digging into Air Force programs. And guess what? They actually found some clues. Remember when Lockheed Martin proposed a so-called 5.8 generation fighter? It would take next-gen NG-80 technology and retrofit it into the F-35, offering 80% of NGAD's performance at half the cost. At the time, people thought it was just marketing talk. But now, with the F-55 on the table, it might have been the early version of what Trump just revealed. After losing the NGD bid to Boeing, Lockheed likely shifted focus toward upgrading the F-35 and F-22. And pitching a twin-engine F-35 might have been a smart way to stay in the sixth-gen fighter game, especially if it means giving Trump something he already liked back in 2023. And if the F-55 does become real, guess who will be the happiest? The U.S. Air Force and Navy. Since the beginning of the Joint Strike Fighter program, both services have had concerns about relying on a single engine. The F-35's current design is a compromise built to satisfy the Air Force, Navy, and Marine Corps. To keep costs down and ensure commonality, a single engine was essential. Fewer parts, simpler logistics, easier maintenance. The key reason? The Marines needed vertical takeoff and landing, like in the F-35B. Using a single engine to drive a lift fan and a vectoring nozzle simplifies everything. Less weight, smaller size, and fewer issues with asymmetric thrust. A twin-engine Stavel fighter would be far more complex and possibly too heavy for carrier operations. That's why from day one, the F-35 was always a single-engine jet. But let's face it, performance-wise, two engines are better. The Air Force and Navy both knew it. But at the time, no enemy could seriously challenge American air power. The Air Force still had the F-22, and the F-35's focus was on multi-role flexibility, air-to-ground, air superiority, electronic warfare, and so on. Its single F-135 engine was powerful enough, and keeping costs down was crucial, especially for foreign sales. The Navy also had its doubts. It traditionally prefers twin-engine carrier aircraft. But the Pentagon insisted on a unified design. So even the Navy had to accept the single-engine setup. Now, if the F-55 comes to life, it would finally be the ideal solution for both the Air Force and Navy. But could the Marines switch to it? That's a big question mark. More importantly, what happens when you try to add a second engine to the F-35? The answer, it's no longer an F-35. There's simply no room inside the current airframe for a second engine. And in stealth aircraft, the shape is everything. The F-35 stealth comes mainly from its aerodynamic design, not just radar-absorbing coatings. Its internal weapons bay is huge, deep, and wide enough to carry 2,000-pound bombs. That's why the F-35 uses a single-engine, conventional layout with a large fuselage. Compared to the F-16, it's only slightly longer and wider, but it's almost as heavy as the F-15 and carries even more fuel than the F-14. Trying to squeeze another engine into that tightly packed design? Impossible. So, in the end, does the F-55 really have a future? Let's break it down. From a technical standpoint, turning the F-35 into a twin-engine jet is no minor upgrade. It's a full-on redesign. That means new airframe, new aerodynamics, new materials, new testing procedures, the works. It's essentially building an entirely new aircraft, while still borrowing some systems and components from the F-35. So calling it an F-35 upgrade is more of a marketing spin than a real description. From a cost perspective, this is another headache. The F-35 is already one of the most expensive military projects in history. Adding a second engine, completely re-engineering the airframe, and making it meet Navy and Air Force requirements, that would likely double the price tag. Right now, an F-35A costs about $80 million. An F-55, you're probably looking at $150 to $180 million per jet, if not more. Even the Navy, who would benefit most from a twin-engine stealth fighter, would probably prefer to accelerate development of its own sixth-generation fighter under the F/A-XX banner. That program, despite recent delays, is specifically tailored to the Navy's future combat needs, unlike the F-55, which seems like a patchwork solution driven more by politics than strategic planning. And let's be honest, this entire idea of the F-55 seems more like a publicity move than an actual procurement decision. Trump knows what grabs headlines. And for a president known for criticizing the F-35 program in the past, announcing a better version with twin engines on foreign soil, no less, is a brilliant way to get back into the spotlight. Still, there may be something behind the scenes. As we mentioned earlier, Lockheed Martin had already proposed a kind of 5.8 generation fighter, basically an F-35 with advanced tech borrowed from the NGAD program. It's not impossible that this concept was rebranded as F-55 to appeal to Trump's preferences. Maybe they even handed him a model or a presentation. We can't say for sure, but what we can say is this. Turning the F-35 into a twin-engine stealth fighter would break the original design logic of the JSF program. The whole point of the F-35 was to create a cost-effective, multi-role, universal platform for all three branches of the military. Adding another engine increases complexity, cost, and logistical burden, completely undermining that goal. That's why, even if Lockheed Martin loves the idea, and even if Trump keeps pushing it, the Pentagon and Congress might not be as enthusiastic. They have bigger priorities right now, like completing NGAD, keeping the F-47 on track, and preparing for potential conflicts in the Indo-Pacific.